father would rise a little late, around 7 or 8. Then, after taking a bath, he would go purchasing. Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna. So it's very interesting here. Prabhupada said, my father would rise a little late, around 7 or 8. Then after taking bath, he would go purchasing. Then, from 10 o'clock to 1 in the afternoon, he was engaged in puja. From 10 to 1, he was engaged in puja. Then he would take his lunch and go to business. And in the business shop, he would take a little rest for 1 hour.
There was that much business.
He would come home from business at 10 o'clock at night. And then again, he would do puja. Actually, his real business was puja. Actually, his real business was puja. For livelihood, he did some business, but puja was his main business. We would be sleeping and father would be doing arati. Ding, ding, ding. We would hear the bell and wake up and see him bowing down before Krishna. This is very interesting. When we read this, whoever does business nowadays, he would collapse in 3 minutes. To do puja in the morning, and then you know, do what else was? He would wake up at 7 o'clock, 8 o'clock, then do a little puja, take shower, then do the puja, and then he would go to around 1 o'clock. No, then he would take lunch. Then he would go to the business. Can you just leave this alone, please? I mean, you can play with this later. So actually, we will talk about this today in Lord Chaitanya Mahaprabhu. This particular situation. And then he would go to the business around 1 o'clock, and then meanwhile he would take a little nap, 1 hour of nap. So this is the business in those days. And therefore, when Srila Prabhupada writes or says, you know, the Brahmanas or Kshatriyas or Vaishnavas, they should not work for others, meaning you can do something like this business, and then you can make your livelihood. But nowadays this is not possible. This is actually not possible. If you want to do something like this, your business will not. So the meaning that Kali Yuga is degrading more and more and more. And we should understand this fact that comparing to 30 years ago, the Kali Yuga has degraded so much. And another 30 years it will be more degraded. So we should really be serious and make, as Prabhupada says, the best out of bad bargain. Bad bargain means we got something really bad, but somehow we have to live with this. You cannot just say, I'm most fallen. As Srila Prabhupada would say, you are the most nothing. We all fallen, we all have our very difficult situation in the material world, and only unique situation to me. But it's actually everybody has exactly the same. But we should just take it and accept Krishna consciousness. And as Prabhupada says here, my father's business is not really a business. This business was puja. He would do 3 hours puja in the morning and in the evening 1 hour. 4 hours of puja, 4 hours of meditation of Krishna. So we were talking yesterday. We were yesterday in one city nearby, and we were talking about this. The numbers are very important in Krishna consciousness. Prabhupada gave us these numbers. And these numbers are, for example, 4:30 a.m. This is the number that we have. Mangala Arati is 4:30 a.m. We don't have Mangala Arati. Okay, let's have it today. 6 maybe? 6:10? No, it's a 4:30. Mangala Arati is a 4:30. And everybody knows it's a 4:30. And didis have been open at 4:30 in the morning. They're not open, well, wait until, Bhakti Moritz comes, then we'll open the didis. No, we open the didi at 4:30 in the morning, because this is what Prabhupada gave. Prabhupada gave these strict numbers that we're supposed to follow. Another very important number we have is number 4. There's a number 4 regulative principles. This is the 4. He didn't give 3 or 3.5. Prabhupada said you can follow 3.5 principles and this is very nice. So he gave 4, number 4. No illicit sex, no meat eating, no intoxication, no gambling. Period. There's no 3 or 2. Or do as much as you can. Of course, we do as much as we can before we promise in front of spiritual master and the fire. Once we promise, there's no more do as you can. You have to do it on the great cost. Because the result, the reward is amazing. It's reward is attaining the lotus feet of Krishna. So you have to do little effort. Because yesterday somebody said, but there's an argument that Krishna knows me in my heart that I'm serious, but right now I cannot be so serious. Yes, but he knows you that you're also a rascal. So you have to actually put some effort to do this. Another very, very important number in the Krishna consciousness movement is number 16. There's 16 rounds. And we have to chant 16 rounds, not 15 rounds, not 14 rounds, or chant as much as you can, or sometimes I don't feel like, my mind is not, or I did so much service, or I cannot, I chanted only 10 rounds, but it's okay, I did lots of service, so it compensates, Prabhupada said 16 rounds. Sometimes, we are tired, we finish all day service, and then we're in the evening, 10:30 in the evening, and then we just take our beads, Hare Krishna, we have 8 rounds left, and falling asleep a little bit, but you have to chant off 16 rounds. Prabhupada gave 16 rounds to those who are initiated. If you're not initiated, then you have to work up slowly to the 16 rounds. But if a person is initiated, there's no, I don't want to say no sentiment, but something like no sentiments. You promised. We all promising in front of the fire, in front of the Krishna, in front of the deities. Therefore, these initiations are very important things. It's an official promise to Krishna, official document, which is not written, but we promise. And Krishna remembers this, and we also remember this. We are sitting in front of the fire, and Guru gives us beads, and everybody beats out, his name is Janardhan Das, everybody's you are happy. But then this Janardhan Das has to uphold these 4 principles to the rest of his life, or Janardhani Dasi also. So this is always important to remember. And now we'll read a little bit from Caritamrita, which is also connected to Prabhupada. So let's start. Jaya Jaya Shri Caitanya, Jaya Nityananda. Jaya Shri Caitanya, Jaya Nityananda. Jaya Jaya Shri Caitanya, Jaya Nityananda. Jaya Jaya Shri Caitanya, Jaya Nityananda. Jaya Dvaita Chandra, Jaya Gaura Bhakta Vrinda. Jaya Dvaita Chandra, Jaya Gaura Bhakta Vrinda. Before we proceed, sorry Maharaj, I'm supposed to ask you, would you like to add something to what I just said or what we read?
Yeah, when you mentioned the initiation, I just came across something that it says it's 5 witnesses also. Okay. I don't remember the exact, but it's the public and the deities, it's 5.
Yeah, okay. 5 witnesses. So we are not just like, nobody was there at my initiation, so nobody saw it. No, there are witnesses. There are always witnesses. And fires do, yes. So, Hare Krishna. So they will be reading from Chaitanya Charitamrita, this wonderful book. And I will read from the verse Madhya Lila, first chapter, verse 64, and on some other verses. Mahaprabhu Jagannatera Upala Boga Dekia, Nija Grihyena Eitinere Milia. 1,64. That's okay. Drittes Mal. So every day, Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu used to see the Upala Bhoga ceremony at the temple of Jagannath, and after seeing this, he used to go visit these 3 great personalities on his way to his own residence. Purport. Upala Bhoga is a particular type of offering performed just behind the Garuda Stamba on a stone slab. That stone slab is called Upala. All food is offered within the temple room, just below the altar of Jagannath. This Bhoga, however, was offered on the stone slab within the vision of the public, therefore is called Upala Bhoga. I've not been to a temple, so we cannot speak, none of us have entered the Jagannath temple. But apparently this, when we offer things on the altar, so Jagannath is on the altar most, but then they offer something on the Garuda Stamba, outside of the main altar. So this is called Upala Bhoga. And Lord Chaitanya would see this every day. He would watch this every day. Eiti namadye yave takai janam tandreasya panmile prabhuraniyama. If one of these three was not present, he would meet the others. This was the regular practice. Do you know who are the three personalities? These are Rupa Goswami, Sanatana Goswami, or Haridas Thakur. These three great personalities. And the reason why would Lord Chaitanya see them is because they were not, Haridas Thakur was not allowed to enter the temple because he was a Muslim, or from his origin. And Sanatana Goswami and Rupa Goswami also did not enter voluntarily because they worked for the Muslim government and they thought themselves become, contaminated to enter the sanctity of Lord Jagannath. So they considered themselves also Muslims, although they came from the Sarasvata Brahmana. This is the line of the Brahmanas which is they considered the most pure Brahmanas from South India, Karnataka. So, but these three personalities, they actually never entered Jagannath temple, interestingly enough. So if we go to Jagannath Puri and you don't enter the temple, we should not be angry. We think like, wow, Rupa Goswami never entered, so how can I, Although Prabhupada was very angry at the Pandas in Jagannath Puri, and Prabhupada refused to enter the temple or Jagannath. He said, if my disciples cannot go inside, I will not go inside. And he never, I think this was the last time he came to Puri, and he never came to Puri anymore. Prabhupada is very protective of his disciples. As they said, stand by your own people. He was not just a guru, he considered them, these are my people. When Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu went to the residence of Srila Rupa Goswami, he accidentally saw the palm leaf on the roof, and thus he read the verse composed by him. Shloka Padiyache Prabhu Avishta Haya Rupa Gosani Asipade Dandavatahana. After reading this verse, Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu went into an ecstatic mood. While he was in this state, Srila Rupa Goswami came and immediately fell down on the floor like a rod, danda. The word danda, Prabhupada says, means rod or pole. A rod or pole falls straight. Similarly, when one offers obeisance to his superior with all 8 angas, all 8 parts of the bodies, he performs what is called dandavat. Sometimes we only speak of dandavats, but actually do not fall down. Like we don't, when I joined, this is how devotees thought we should offer obeisances to Guru. It's funny in Belgrade, You stand and you just have to fall like this. There was no, now we offer obeisances like dandavats. But then they were just falling like this. And one devotee told me he saw Guru, and the point is, as soon as you see Guru or spiritual master, wherever you may be, you have to fall like dandavat. So there was some puddle of water, and he saw Guru, and he just fell like this. Splash, because it's written in the Shastra. But actually Prabhupada says here, but actually we do not fall down. In any case, dandavat means falling down like a rod before one superior. Meaning you're offering obeisance, but not like this, falling. So next morning, if you see Maharaj, we all like fall down. The verse, interesting. I spoke last Sunday about this verse. This is the verse spoken by Srimati when the Lord Krishna was in the Kurukshetra, and Balaram and Subhadra they came to Dwaraka, and I was speaking about Ratha Yatra last Sunday, And this particular verse was spoken, as is described here by Srimati Radharani, to Krishna. They said, all this is, I'm the same person, you're the same person, and the moon is the same. This was the time when this, I forgot the name, the moon was the most bright. And the breezes, everything there, and the trees, everything is similar, but it's not the same, because we are not near on the bank of Yamuna. So this was the verse. And this is a very confidential verse, and this is described, this is the confidential meaning of Ratha Yatra. In our Krishna consciousness, we have always external and internal meaning. In the Chaitanya Caritamrita, it is described the external reason of Chaitanya Mahaprabhu's appearance and internal reasons of Chaitanya Mahaprabhu's appearance. There's a whole chapters to it. So, when Rupa Goswami fell down like a rod, this was the verse Rupa wrote on this paper, and he stuck it on the hut. And Lord Chaitanya came to look for Rupa and didn't see it. He saw the paper and he read it, and he became overwhelmed in ecstatic emotion. So Rupa Goswami came and he fell down like Dandavat, like a rod. Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu got up and gave him a slap. Then taking him on his lap, began to speak to him. Imagine Lord Chaitanya take you on his lap. Mora shlokera abhipraya najane kane jane mara manera kata tumi janila kemane. No one knows the purport of my verse. Chaitanya Mahaprabhu said, how could you understand my intention? Prabhupada translates here intention, and the verse says manera, mind. How do you understand my mind? How do you understand the mind of Lord Chaitanya? I mean, imagine. He's God, Supreme Personality of God. And he said the verse, Vaishnavera kriya mudra vigehana bhujaya. Nobody can understand the mind of a Vaishnava. And how can you understand the mind of God? This is why, this is a little situation here. You have to understand the mind of a speaker. Mridanga player, he has to understand the mind of a leader who sings kirtan. Mridanga player starts singing, and a kirtan leader is like, this is not what I want, So you have to understand the mind of a leader. It's not easy. So it's not, but how can you understand the mind of God, or mind of Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu? But Rupa Goswami could understand. And Lord Chaitanya was astonished. How can he do this? Etabalitanre bahu prasada kariya Svarupa Goswami re shloka dekai lalana. Saying this, Lord Chaitanya Mahaprabhu bestowed various benedictions upon Rupa Goswami. And taking the verse, he later showed it to Svarupa Goswami. Interestingly enough, Rupa Goswami and Sanatana Goswami, they came later to the pastimes of Lord Chaitanya Mahaprabhu. They missed the pastimes of, Navadvip. When Lord Chaitanya took initiation, he started displaying these amazing ecstatic symptoms. They had a kirtan in their house, kirtan house of Srivasa Pandit, and then all this Sankirtan on the street. Also this whole thing with Chant Kazi, with hundreds of thousands of people came out, with Harinam chanting. They went to Kazi's house, surrounded. And Rupa Goswami missed all these things. Rupa Goswami came later. But nevertheless, Rupa Goswami became most confidential. And the reason is, when Lord Chaitanya was present in the early, you can say his day. So Lord Chaitanya did not speak much philosophy. As we know, even when he went to South India, he would just walk and raise his hands and chant Hari Bol, and everybody was just chanting. Later on, of course, he defeated Sarvabhauma Bhattacharya and Keshava Kashmiri also. But the point is what the Lord Chaitanya did not explain what is he doing. I'm reading right now some, books on this description of what happened in those days in Bengal when Lord Chaitanya was present. And there were so many different groups and Buddhists and Buddhist tantrics. Some connection between Hindu tantrics and Buddhists, and they somehow adopted. They became a sect, and they were worshipping. They were engaged in some not so great activities between men and women, And when they saw Lord Chaitanya, they thought, that's it, we were going to follow this. So all these Buddhists, they become followers of Lord Chaitanya. Then Sahajiyas, there's all kinds of, people, all kind of lower castes people. So Lord Chaitanya accepted all of them, and they've all just engaged in chanting and dancing, but philosophically there was not much, description. So only when Rupa Goswami came, and Sanatana, Lord Chaitanya sent him to Vrindavan and asked him to write the books on the Bhakti. What is actual Bhakti? So Sanatana Goswami wrote even this heavy book of rules. What's the name? Sanatana Goswami. No. That's Rupa Goswami.
I have it in my library, but I don't remember the name.
Exactly. This was the last time also we said. Last year I was speaking exactly, I couldn't remember. Hari Bhakti Vilas. Hari Bhakti Vilas. And this is full of rules. But interesting, because Lord Chaitanya said, just chant, forget about all this, we just chant. Shudra kene, kiba vipra kiba nyasi, Shudra kene nai. Just whatever you are, you may be scholar, you may be Shudra, sannyasi, just chant Hare Krishna and preach everywhere. So they followed this very heartily, and then suddenly, some people came from Vrindavan, Narottam Das, Shyamananda, and Srinivas, carrying this cart full of books written by the Goswamis. They say, we have to actually follow some rules now. And Lord Chaitanya offered these rules, Bhakti Rasamrita Sindhu, we read every morning now, 64 items of devotional service. This is what devotional service is. They're all like a little bit surprised. So Rupa Goswami, and therefore Rupa Goswami is very important in a sense that he actually fulfilled Lord Chaitanya's, explained what Lord Chaitanya's mission is, and established what Gaudiya Vaishnavism is. Before that, there was not so. We have Vrindavan, Lord Chaitanya stayed in Puri, we have in Mayapur, we have several places, different places. So there was no one headquarter, like ISKCON. We have a headquarter, in Mayapur, but it's not really, devotees are meeting everywhere, and so it's a worldwide movement with the center of Chaitanya Charitamrita is the center, because Chaitanya Charitamrita shows what is devotional service, how does devotee behave, what does devotee do, and then be judged by this, not by some, whoever said something in the headquarters. So this is always to remember the Chaitanya Charitamrita and the books by the Goswamis are the essence of Lord Chaitanya's movement. Narottam Das Thakur sings this song, when will I understand the books of the Goswamis, then I will be able to understand the pastimes of Radha and Krishna. It's very important books left by the Goswamis. So, next verse. Svarupe Purchena Prabhu Haya Vishmite Mora Manera Kata Rupa Janila Kemate. Having shown the verse, Swarup Damodar, with great wonder, Chaitanya Mahaprabhu asked how Rupa Goswami could understand the intentions of his mind. So, Mora Manera Kata. My mind, how could he understand my mind? Lord Chaitanya was surprised himself. Because, if you are, who can understand minds of anybody? You can just look, a person can think about something we don't know. Prabhupada said in purport, this is the last verse. Next verse is 172 words for the next Sunday. We had the opportunity to receive a similar blessing from Srila Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati Goswami when he was presented an essay at his birthday ceremony. Meaning Prabhupada also received the blessings of Bhaktisiddhanta of his guru when it was the birthday of Bhaktisiddhanta Vyasa Puja, and Lord Chaitanya Srila Prabhupada wrote a poem for his guru. Prabhupada said he was so pleased with the essay that he used to call some of his confidential devotees and show them. And he asked, how could he have, Prabhupada said, how could we have understood the intentions of Srila Prabhupada? This is humility of Prabhupada. Meaning, how could Prabhupada understand the intentions, the mind of Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati? So this is a very nice point. That Srila Prabhupada actually understood the mind of his guru. This is also not easy, because, for example, how to understand the mind of Srila Prabhupada. He has so many. And if you say nowadays, particularly, Prabhupada wanted this, he said other things also. So many, though you can never get to, somebody will quote with a quote against the quote and quote against the quote. But the real mind of Srila Prabhupada is not easy to understand. It's by the mercy of Prabhupada we can understand the mind of Prabhupada. And this is I thought this verse Prabhupada gave many times. Shri Caitanya manobishtam stapitam yena bhutale svaya rupa kadamayam dadati svapadantikam. That manobishtam, the Shri Caitanya manobishtam, the Rupa Goswami understood the mind of Shri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu. And therefore, and he established this mission to fulfill these desires of Lord Chaitanya. So this is what Rupa Goswami with his books did. And this is what Prabhupada also did, because he understood the mind of Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati, which is preaching. People will say, this is for the preaching, or this is for the preaching, but, to understand the mind, what Prabhupada really wanted is, it requires some really sincerity and requires some studying what Prabhupada actually said, meaning studying Prabhupada's books. If anybody in university wants to write an essay for the degree, you have to read so many books. For example, if you want to write an essay of Immanuel Kant, you have to read whatever Kant ever said. You have to read and you have to study and you have to see what other people said about it and how. So if you want to understand Prabhupada, you have to read all Prabhupada's books. You have to read all conversations, all letters. Then we can maybe try to understand Prabhupada and also see the history. What Prabhupada did in the 70s and in the 60s. Like, for example, if you read all this, there's a book by Tamal Krishna Goswami, Servant of the Servant. Or there's a Vyasaki wrote this book, Radha Damodar Vilas. Or Satsarup Maharaj wrote this ISKCON in the 70s. If you read this, you would think, or Harishori Prabhu, which we were reading, you will see how Prabhupada acted, how Prabhupada did it, how Prabhupada reacted to certain situations. And this is what a poem Prabhupada wrote to his guru. He wrote this poem, and one particular verse is, absolute insentient, thou hast proved, all impersonal calamity thou hast moved. This is a little bit old English, but says, the absolute is sentient, means the absolute truth, Krishna, is alive. This is actually a person. Thou hast proved, you proved that. All impersonal calamity thou hast moved. All the impersonalism, all this, you kicked out. And in the other day when we spoke about Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati, we saw how fearless he was, Bhaktisiddhanta, no nonsense. He would go and he would chant all these rounds, 300,000 rounds, manage the temple, and in his free time he would go to Navadvip and he was challenge everybody. Why are you cheating people with this Maya, the philosophy? People will be like, oh my God. People are afraid of Bhaktisiddhanta, to argue with Bhaktisiddhanta, because he would defeat everybody. Impersonalism means that we don't believe that Krishna is a person. Even if we are not Mayavadis members of the Sringeri Math in South India, by reading Advaita Vedanta by Shankaracharya, we may still be impersonalist. We think that God, it doesn't matter, or no, Krishna is actually a person. And therefore Srila Prabhupada brought this also to the West. So when devotees, for example, wanted to cook for the Lord, we didn't just cook to the Lord and we just put in some plates. And Prabhupada says, you should fill up the plate big amounts so that 17 years old boy would eat. So how much 17 years old boy would eat? This much you fill the plate. Prabhupada wanted the bowls for the offering to be full. Sometimes you see the bowls are half full, or no, we should full. For Krishna, he's a 17 years old boy, he should eat well. For example, or Prabhupada many times would say, he promised to Radha Rasa Bihari, for example, in Bombay. He said, I promise I will build you a temple here. and he was fighting. There was a huge fight. And Tamal Krishna Goswami, in the middle of this fight, there was a big, for the land, because they paid the down payment, and the person cheated him. He wanted money. He took the money, but he didn't want to give the land. And they went to the court. There was a big legal fight, not physical fight. And in the middle of it, devotees seemed to be losing the battle. And Tamal Krishna Goswami said to Prabhupada, Prabhupada, why are we fighting with this piece of land? We can buy any land. We have money. We can buy any land in Bombay. And Prabhupada says, no, I promised to Rasa Bihari, I will build a temple here, and I will build a temple there. Meaning, Prabhupada established this, Krishna is a person. And therefore we dress the Krishna, we put flowers, we offer food. I was also reading yesterday about prasadam. And Prabhupada says that should be offered every day. Food should be offered every day at the same time. So that's why we have different offerings, different temples have different standards, but offering at the same time, we offer to Krishna. Because we offer to actually a person. So this is the poem. And another thing with Bhakti, Srila Prabhupada, there was an instance when Srila Prabhupada was sitting, one of the rare situations where Prabhupada was sitting with Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati in the same room. Prabhupada says, I met my Guru Maharaj only a few times. And this was a thing in Koshi. Koshi is like a north part of Vrindavan, of Brajamandala, very close towards New Delhi, going towards New Delhi, Koshi. And this is still considered Vrindavan area. And Prabhupada, Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati was giving lecture. At the same time, devotees organized to see the deity called Sheshashai Vishnu. This is the very old deity. Sheshashai means the Vishnu who lays on the ocean, like reclines. And so all the devotees, most of the devotees, they thought, oh, we should go and see. This is the rare situation, the darshan, to have a darshan of Sheshashai Vishnu. And Prabhupada stayed. He did not go to see Vishnu, but he stayed for the lecture of Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati. And Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati was very pleased. He said he likes to hear. Meaning Prabhupada understood, it is more important to stay with the Guru than to go see the deity. Actually, this was the point also in Chaitanya Mahaprabhu's own life, when he was still Nimai Pandit and he went to Gaya to offer pinda, to offer oblations to his forefathers. And Lord Chaitanya, at that time Nimai Pandit, saw this footprint of Vishnu, and he started exhibiting some emotional symptoms. And then, while this was going on, the Ishvara Puri came. Just accidentally, of course, they said that Lord Chaitanya, because he's a super soul, directed him there. And Lord Chaitanya asked him for initiation. And Lord Chaitanya said many verses there, explaining how actually meeting a pure devotee is more important than going to the place of pilgrimage. And serving the pure devotee is more important than going to a place of pilgrimage or doing anything else. So many devotees, of Srila Prabhupada, disciples of Srila Prabhupada, they have not seen Srila Prabhupada often, but they're still dedicated. And many devotees did not meet Srila Prabhupada, like most of us here, except Maharaj. We have not met Srila Prabhupada personally, but we are still somehow dedicated to Srila Prabhupada. Because this is actually the secret, you can say, of making spiritual advancement. Serving the Mahat, the great souls, the devotees of Krishna. And Bhaktivinoda Thakur, in this, sings in his song, Kalyana Kalpataru, as follows. My dear mind, you are always attached to different places of pilgrimage, such as Ayodhya, Mathura, Haridwar, Kashi, Avanti and Dwaraka. You want to travel to all these holy places of pilgrimage again and again. But it is clear that your heart is not fixed spiritually by going to these places. Therefore, all your wanderings is simply useless labor. So this is the very interesting point here. Even the holy places, or even, people go to different Rath Yatras, and this is very nice, it's wonderful, but our mind cannot be fixed in the sense that we cannot really make spiritual investment unless we stay, and he said, okay, now is the time for me to do something practical. So Bhaktivinoda Thakur says here, I never visit any place of pilgrimage that is devoid of the presence of unalloyed devotees. I never visit any place which there is no pure devotees. He said, for what is the benefit gained by walking to such distant places? Wherever there are devotees, that place is actually Vrindavan. Only there can one find unlimited pleasure. That this is even Lord Caitanya, once he wanted to go to Vrindavan unsuccessfully. Lord Nityananda cheated him a little bit, told him this is Yamuna, and it was not Yamuna. And then Advaita Acharya came, and Lord Caitanya was in ecstasy. He said, Advaita, what are you doing in Vrindavan? And Advaita said, I'm not in Vrindavan, this is actually Shantipur. This is and he said, Nityananda, you cheated me, you told me this is Vrindavan. And Advaita Acharya said, actually, technically half of the Ganga is actually Yamuna, so you are somehow near Yamuna bank. But in reality, wherever you are, that is Vrindavan. So wherever there are pure devotees, wherever we serve devotees, this is actually Vrindavan. So meaning, it is very nice that we go to a holy place of pilgrimage, Vrindavan, Mayapur, it's very purifying. But the real actually process of making advancement is the service to the pure devotees. In our case, service to Srila Prabhupada, our spiritual master, and the other devotees. This is actually the gist, the essence of spiritual advancement. How can one make spiritual advancement? All right, so Prabhupada says, preaching is not very pleasant. You have to meet so many difficulties. Still, devotees are going for it. They are not disturbed. Then he gives the example of Nityananda Prabhu. He went to Jaga and Madai, and one of them take this pot and hit him in the head, and blood poured. Nityananda was injured. He said, but Vaishnava, he thinks for everyone's benefit. That without Krishna consciousness, everybody is suffering. Everybody, when you see walking on the street, who not walk on the street, they're suffering. Suffering. People actually are suffering. And then when this suffering is over, they're going to not glorious next life. So Vaishnava thinks this way. Prabhupada says, so therefore preaching is very important to awaken these people. Jeev Jago, Gaura Chandra Bola. This is Chaitanya Mahaprabhu's mission, to awaken everyone from this material entanglement, that is preaching. So this is the mission, and this is actually, I think Bhakti Vikas Maharaj, he writes this book right now called Mood and Mission of Srila Prabhupada. Mission of Srila Prabhupada and mood of Srila Prabhupada is actually preaching. His mind, and we can see in the history of when Srila Prabhupada was present as you could say, presiding of ISKCON, preaching was the only thing he was interested in. That was it. How to expand the movement, how to bring Krishna consciousness to every town and village. In every town and village. Prabhupada was, as I also mentioned the other week, that Prabhupada was sitting, I heard this from Shyamasundar Prabhu, he told us, this senior Prabhupada disciple, once we were in America, and he was telling us like this, we were sitting, and he said Prabhupada was not, serious, of course he was very serious, but Prabhupada would always, he said he would speak like sometimes with him, he would tell him, Shyamasundar, where should we go next? and Shyamasundar would, Prabhupada, let's go to, I don't know, Europe. And said, no, we have been to Europe many times. Let's go somewhere where we have never been. And then Shyamasundar said, how about Mexico, Prabhupada? He said, let's go to Mexico, Prabhupada. Meaning Prabhupada was always, he mentions also, the Prabhupada was very eager to go to places there was no Krishna consciousness, to present Krishna consciousness. So this was the mood of Prabhupada. He would not say, okay, now let's go to Vrindavan and do bhajan 12 hours a day. Prabhupada also did some, but his main thing was he would answer letters, and he was concerned about the preaching mission all over the world. And Prabhupada actually went all over the world. He went to Africa, he went to Asia, he went to Hong Kong, Japan. I mean, if you think about it, 8 years old man traveling to Hong Kong preaching to some young people. Then he goes from Hong Kong, he goes to Hawaii. From Hawaii, he goes to South America, Mexico, Venezuela. Prabhupada went. It's amazing. It's actually amazing what Prabhupada has done. If you just read this, you would just be amazed. If you think, how am I doing this? Can I do something like this? And Prabhupada did all these amazing things. And America, and Europe, everywhere. Prabhupada established Krishna consciousness everywhere. Then Prabhupada says like this, we have to work. That is preaching. You don't think preaching is easy going, eating, sleeping, and sometimes chanting Hari Bol. That's all. And then we chant Hari Bol, and that's it. We go a little Harinam, and then we make photos, and then we post it on mass media, and everybody said, "Wow, Harinam, you did Harinam today," and we said, "Yes." But the reason actually we do Harinam is to actually preach to people, attract people. Therefore, Harinam should be attractive. Harinam should be nice, and we should distribute flyers, we should distribute books, and we should be very attentive. Who is listening? If somebody is listening, we should come. We should say, oh, we have a temple here. This is why we go to Harinams, actually, to preach. Not that we make a photo of ourselves and then we feel good about ourselves, and we write, this month we did 3 Harinams, and everybody, Hari Hari Bol, it's nice. It's nice, but this is the point, Prabhupada says here. It's not that we eat, sleep, and sometimes chant Hari Bol. That is not preaching. We must be ready to implant Krishna conscious ideas throughout the whole world. To implant means to insert, to present Krishna consciousness throughout the whole world. So each, we have to, as preachers or as potential preachers, we have to think, how can I present Krishna consciousness to please Prabhupada? And we should, as Prabhupada says, tax your brain, means beat your brain and think, maybe this is a good idea, maybe this is not. Meaning brainstorming. How can I present Krishna consciousness all over the world? Is this good way or is this not good way? Yesterday I was talking to Rupa Vilas Prabhu, and he told me he tried this Krishna Bewusst Leben, which is a little more around preaching. Like, speak a little more psychology maybe. And he said, I tried this, and I realized this is not me. I cannot do this. I'm straightforward, and I tell people Krishna consciousness, and if they accept it, they accept it, But the point here is that he tried, The point is you try this way. It doesn't work so, okay, let's try the other way. And even in the beginning, Srila Prabhupada, when he came to America, he had these 2 boxes of Srimad Bhagavatam. He didn't think like, okay, now I should find the book distributors to go on the street. Prabhupada brought these boxes, and he went to shops, different libraries, bookstores. And he said, can you sell my books? And on consignment, means I give you the book, I give you 50 books, and whatever sells, the bookstore gets 30% or 50%, the rest I get. Something like this. This is consignment. And he didn't sell much. And then he started a movement, and he had the devotees joined, and still they could not. These books were kind of not sold so much. And then one day, one devotee was going to fill up the tank of this car in the Tankstelle, and he said, the person came with the pump, he was pumping, and he said, would you take 1 book instead of money? And the man said, sure, why not? So then he came back and he said, wow, I did this. I gave 1 book and I got the petrol. And the devotees were like, wow, let's try it again. So then he went again to another tankstelle, and he said, would you take a book instead of the money to petrol, you know? And the man said, yeah, sure. They were like, wow. So this is how book distribution started, actually. This is the beginning of book distribution. That somebody was giving petrol for the book. And then I think he did like this for some time. He was going everywhere for the petrol. I tried actually once. We were in Colorado, middle of nowhere, like really middle of nowhere. It's like a, you know, every 100 kilometers is one tankstelle. There's a plane. And I said, let's try this. You know. We stopped and I said, you know, we went and I had the one book, I forgot, Science of Self-Realization. I said, would you take a book for the... And the girl said, sure, why not? We were like, we did it, Prabhupada, ki jai. And then we tried the next tankstelle and I said, no, I'm not interested. No Shakti, no Shakti. But at least we did one book, you know. So, and then slowly book distribution, that's how book distribution started. And the first book distributor, the big book distributor was Keshava Prabhu. Keshava Prabhu was a temple president in San Francisco. And at that time they had this Krishna book, you know, I don't know, we don't have this. They're like this big. Like and it's thick, like a big brick, it's very heavy. And it's written big, Krishna. Yeah, like this.
Krishna, the supreme person of the Godhead.
Yeah.
They have changed the title in various places.
Oh, okay.
Was it Krishna?
Alle Freude. Alle Freude oder so.
So that people don't see.
Yeah. There was a big brick, you know. I mean, if you see these books, they're so heavy, and they're the tree. It's like, you know, for ladies, they were quite heavy to carry, you know. So they were trying to sell these books, you know. And that was and the number one book distributor in the world at that time was Keshava Prabhu. He did 5 books a day. And people were like, wow, 5 books. This was unimaginable to do 5 books a day. You know, and slowly it became more and more. Then we had the series of Maharati devotees who could do hundreds of books, you know. There's one devotee I met in one, Panch Tattva Prabhu. They said he was such an expert magazine, he was distributing Back to God magazine. He would do so many, he said before the van stops, he would already do 20 magazines, you know. Already the van is stopping, he opened the window and said, excuse me, sir, and he would distribute books while van is parking, you know. He was so fired up, he would do like 200 or 300 magazines a day. You know, so fire up devotees. But the beginning was like this, you know. So meaning we have to also experiment. Maybe this is good way, maybe not. This is not good way. And as Prabhupada says here, we have to work. We have to do some effort. We actually have to do some effort. Shishi Vijay Gauranga Dolita ki jaya. And Prabhupada says, deity worship is meant for us to keep us safe. Meaning deity worship is essential to keep us pure. Safe means to keep it pure. Prabhupada said, if we neglect the deity worship, we shall also fall. Meaning, as we said, if we don't have deity worship, then we'll have Mangalarti at 7 o'clock or 6, or sometimes take shower, sometimes I'm lazy to take shower. It's cold water, who's going to take cold shower? Prabhupada says, but that is not all the duties finished, meaning that deity worship is not mean all duties now finished. We worship the deity and everything is great now. Prabhupada said, Archa means deity. If anyone is worshiping the deity very nicely, but he does not know who is a devotee, who is non-devotee, what is the duty of the world, is a material devotee, Prakrita Bhakta, or Kanishta Adhikari. He is a material devotee. So we have to take a responsibility to understand who is actually a pure devotee, what is our duty to the people in general, and then you will make advancement. Says, then you have to become Madhyama Adhikari, Prabhupada said. Madhyama Adhikari means advanced devotee. He said, just like these people, either in India or here, they simply remain churchianity. Like we have a Christianity, but Prabhupada called it churchianity. You know, you have a church and people go to church and they speak a little bit and everybody goes home and Hari Hari Bol. And kids, as I also mentioned, kids are playing in the backyard, they drink a little coffee, and this was it about Jesus. You know, I don't think Jesus would be thinking this is great. You know, he came to actually deliver the people, to say this is material world, you should get out of the material world. But this is what became, as Prabhupada says, churchianity. Going to church without any understanding. Therefore it is falling. Churches are being closed. Similarly, if you do not keep yourself fit to preach, your temples will be closed in due course of time. And even if they're not closed, they become something else. If people, as Prabhupada says, without preaching, you'll not feel enthused to continue the temple worship. And without the temple worship, you cannot keep yourself pure and clean. That these two things must go on parallel. Then there is a success. This is the formula Srila Prabhupada gave. And therefore we have preaching centers, we have temples. Devotees learn, get trained. It's a safe environment, should be a safe environment. How to keep yourself pure, how to learn how to take shower. How to, when you enter the pujari room, you don't enter with old clothes, with new clothes. On the altar, whatever this is learning how to be pure. Also how to cook for the deities, what kind of ingredients we cook. We are reading yesterday, Prabhupada, the instructions on prasadam. Some things are not acceptable. For example, parboiled rice, boiled rice. We don't offer to the deities because it's already pre-cooked by somebody else, non-devotees. So therefore we cannot offer to the deities. And also, Prabhupada explains how we should not engage non-devotees to cook for us, for the devotees, or to cook for the deities. Sometimes we don't have enough cooks, or then we engage, okay, let's see, this person, he's friendly enough, we can cook. No, we are only devotees are cooking, because the consciousness is very important. The purity is very important. We know in Krishna also, Caitanya's mind is to establish Krishna consciousness all over the world. So this was the continuation Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati wanted, and this is a continuation of Srila Prabhupada. So we as followers of Srila Prabhupada should have this mood also. We maintain the high standard of deity worship, and at the same time we preach Krishna consciousness. So these two has to be together. Hare Krishna, thank you very much. Vielen Dank. Maharaj, would you like to say something?
When you were speaking about Prabhupada's preaching spirit, especially in the beginning,
what's the microphone? There's a
microphone. When he inspired his disciples to also take up the preaching, that he expected from his disciples to write reports about their activity, preaching. Actually, what Prabhupada was mostly interested in was how many temples did you open? How many devotees did you open? First books. Yes. Then how many temples did you open? How many devotees did you make? And everything else was kind of secondary.
Yes.
Especially the temple opening.
Yes. I was a time I studied a little bit about the rise of Buddhism, interestingly enough. Because I wanted to see how did they expand, how does Buddhism expand. And Buddha, he had a very interesting technique. He said, you go in pair, only two. And he said, just go there and preach, open temples, And when I was reading this, I was thinking, wow, this is exactly what Prabhupada did. So the system is the same. And those who are preachers, those who want to spread, this is what Prabhupada said. Go and open a temple. And there was this memories of Srila Prabhupada and Guru Kripa Prabhu. He spoke how he was a young devotee, very young devotee. And he always was thinking, how can I be in the company of Prabhupada? How do I be in the company of Prabhupada? Because he saw these big sannyasis standing with Prabhupada. And he said, I want to be one of them. So he didn't know. So he said, I was studying, analyzing. And he said, I realized that all these people who got letter of Srila Prabhupada, they did something. They opened a temple or they did something big. So he said, I should do this.
That's what Hans Buddha also did.
Yeah.
He always wrote to Prabhupada, in order to write to him, he had to present something.
Yeah.
So he was very eager to do something. He wanted to help Prabhupada.
Yes.
And you got lots of letters from Prabhupada.
Yes. Yes. And the Guru Kripa Prabhu, he went to South India and they opened, him and Yashodananda, several temples, and Prabhupada immediately write letters. So this was the Prabhupada's mood, because I was thinking, for example, nowadays, if Prabhupada would be, in his room, if he had some room of Prabhupada, if Prabhupada would be here, like in America, you have temples that Prabhupada actually was sitting and writing. In Hawaii, there's on the second floor, there's a room with Prabhupada was translating Chaitanya Caritamrita for 4 months or 5 months or something like this. Prabhupada spent a long time. So imagine you knock at the door and then you open and Prabhupada would say, yes. What would you say? What would you say? Prabhupada, I'd like to see you. No, you say, Prabhupada, we have opened a temple in whatever, or we have we have printed new book, 9 cantos, Srimad Bhagavatam. Prabhupada would say, oh, okay, come here. And there was this famous instance when, Harikesh, at that time Swami, came to Prabhupada Prabhupada was very sick in Vrindavan, and he brought these books printed, and Prabhupada Prabhupada was very, very pleased. Prabhupada was very pleased.
He even told him that he was the most dear grand disciple of Bhakti.
Yes. So this is how we should greet Prabhupada. Knock at the door. Prabhupada, I've done this. I've done this. Not that we become puffed up, Prabhupada. I've done this, but we should do something. We should do something. I must say, I was always inspired by Bhakti Bhushana Maharaj. He told us once. I think that was in Venezuela. He said, in my time, sannyasi meant you take a pair of kartas, put in your pocket, and hitchhike and go to some place nobody said. He told us this is how you went to Argentina. Harikesh, at that time Swami, sent you to Argentina. He said, I have a pair of kartas, and that's it. You just go and preach. Sorry? And the one-way ticket, If you want to come back, you have to somehow make money to come back, Like also in the example of Brahmananda, he was also sannyasi at that time. Prabhupada said, go to Africa and preach. And he said he didn't have any money, so he collected enough money for the one-way ticket. Imagine you go to the big continent, Africa, and you have no money. Prabhupada says, and you just go on the airport with your danda.
And then he only preached to the Indians.
Yes.
Prabhupada, don't preach to the Indians, go to the African country. Because the Indians were always giving a lot of comfort and inviting him for prasad and whatever.
Yes. So, this is the spirit. Hare Krishna. Anything else would you like to add? Ask. Okay. So we have a task in front of us. You have a few more years to live. Of course, those who are younger, like Bhakta Moritz, he has many more years to live. And we have to do something for Prabhupada. So, Hare Krishna, Srila Prabhupada ki jai.
Eventually.